think that's all of mine. So now I am going to introduce and bring up Amy Daley. Thank you again for staying with us. Amy is our HIPAA Security and Privacy Team Lead. You all have been with conferences before with us. You know that we're in for a good time. Hopefully she'll pronounce things correctly better than I did today.
I didn't pick up on it.
And they're moving this for you, dear.
Okay. I don't know if I want to use the microphone or what's the options here. Do I have an option? Do I have a microphone option? Oh, he said no. You all changed that. The first people, okay, all right. Okay, this is my clicker. Is it, I have to stay in the box. I don't do well with boundaries. All right, so, but I have this, I have to stay in. All right, is it go time? It's go time. 2 thumbs up. All right, well, I'm Amy Daley. And first of all, I just want to say I'm humbled that each of you stayed around for the last presentation of the day for me. Nearly half the room has gone home. They clearly don't care about HIPAA security. I don't know if you all really care or if someone's incentivizing you for some way to stay around, or if you're award recipients, but whatever the reason is, thank you. It's much easier to talk to a room with people in it than not looking at happy faces. So, all right, so I've 9 years, and my primary responsibility these days is HIPAA security. Now, maybe not all of you have a real, an intimate relationship with HIPAA at where you work. But what I will tell you is that you are part of the workforce, whether you are a covered entity or a business associate. So you're part of the workforce, and the work you do is covered by HIPAA. Even if you're not really familiar with all the standards and the rules of HIPAA. As an advisor over the last 9 years, I've seen, a lot of, especially recently, more significant impacts in the security industry, as you all have as well. And so the way I do security risk assessments these days, of course, all the standards are the same, and I review the standards, but we're really focusing on some of those standards that will help protect us against this thing we know as ransomware and cybersecurity attacks, because that's what is causing the biggest disruption in our industry, and not only our industry, but all industries. So unless you've been living under a rock, or you don't look at social media or have internet access, you probably know about the MGM. Oh, I'm out of the box. You probably have heard about the MGM attack. Yes? Nod heads. Is there anyone that hasn't heard about this in the last couple of months? It's okay if you haven't. I mean, I'd be surprised. But so I realize this isn't healthcare. This is entertainment industry. But in September 8th, as a matter of fact, the attack was launched on MGM Grand and their entire organization. That first day, what happened was an attack. Let's see, the bad actors is what they call them. I think they're incredibly great actors, but we call them bad actors. Found information on LinkedIn about a help desk employee, contact information, who works for MGM Grand, and called him up and was able to mimic being a third-party IT consultant that apparently legitimately works for MGM Grand. So he posed as a third-party IT consulting person, asked the help desk person that works directly for MGM to reset passwords. All right. And I mean, shaking my head, the help desk guy did it. So over the phone, the attacker, the hacker, was able to get the actual passwords once the passwords were reset, because that information was shared over the phone. And that day, the attack began on September 8th. 3 days later, the ramifications of that start to appear. Operations start to shift. Things are happening. MGM catches it, which is pretty amazing that they catch it 3 days in, and they make a post on Twitter, which is now called X. And they say, basically, you know, we're aware of a security incident. However, basically, there's minimal damage here, like some of our systems, maybe a few issues, but we're rolling. Next day, September 12th, that's changed. Things are starting to get worse. And at this point, they've already pulled in third-party cybersecurity consulting firms. By the 13th, as you may know, guests could not use their key card passes to get into their hotel rooms. Slot machines weren't working. Online reservations weren't working. The entire systems were down. So 5 days, it took 5 days for the hackers to basically bring MGM down to their knees. And so this malware research company, this post has gone viral, called VX Underground, kind of summarized it as this, just in simple terms. Alpha V ransomware gang is who is suspected to be behind this. All they did to compromise MGM resorts was hop on LinkedIn, find an employee, and call the help desk. And that's kind of how it went down. Passwords were given, and that's all they needed. And so a company valued at about $34 billion was defeated by a 10-minute conversation. This is an example of phishing. You've all heard of phishing. You may or may not be aware that there are several forms of phishing. And as an advisor, one of the things I talk to my clients about every time I'm on site is training about phishing and what phishing is. And phishing is what's ultimately the front door to a ransomware attack, because ultimately what hackers are trying to do is gain your credentials. And once they have your credentials, they can get into the network, and then they know how to do what they do to cause major disruption. So phishing is a form of phishing. It's a voice, basically just social engineering conducted over the phone. So it's not clicking on a link in an email, which is basic phishing. It's exactly what happened to MGM Grand. And so now, as I'm doing assessments this year, I'm going to be hoping and looking for examples of training in your security incident, in your training program, that you're also educating your workforce on other types of phishing attacks, including phishing. Am I still in the picture over here? I just need to move. Okay, I need to move more. All right, so, oops, I went the wrong way. All right, so let's look at our industry in healthcare. So I look at a lot of different security reports throughout the year. Earlier this year, when I originally created this slide, I was looking at a Sophos report, which is a cybersecurity firm, or security firm, and you know, based on their report of 2022, looking at healthcare, you know, 66% of surveyed healthcare organizations experienced a ransomware attack last year. Now, we had 381 participants, healthcare organizations participated in this survey. So out of those 381, 66% of them say they had a ransomware attack last year. The average ransomware payment was about $200,000. Interestingly, 61% of those that had the ransomware attack paid the ransom. And on average, after paying the ransom, those healthcare organizations were only able to recover, on average, 64% of the encrypted data. So ultimately what that says is, if you paid the ransom, don't you think you would expect I'm going to get all my data back? Doesn't happen. And then even worse, only 2% claim that they recovered all of their data. So what good did paying the ransom do, right? And I'll tell you, law enforcement agencies, FBI, who will be called in if you have a ransomware attack, they're going to instruct you not to pay the ransom. And that's because, first of all, they believe we have backed up data. So if our data is encrypted, we can resort to our backups, right? And I have a lot of stories about backups. They don't always go as planned. And the other thing is if you pay the ransom, you're basically giving them permission to come around and do it to you again, right? So think about that. So we got to think about not paying the ransom. We've got to be prepared. We have to be prepared for if this happens to us. And basically every expert out there is going to tell you it's not a matter of when or it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. It's happening. It's not going away. Now, according to this report, average cost to rectify an attack, mid-size healthcare organizations, this says about 1 million. That's really low compared to a lot of other reports. Reports I've read this year are saying that healthcare average, it's the most expensive industry to rectify a breach from ransomware, and it's coming in at about 10 million. So it has gone up considerably. So from a history standpoint, let's look at what's happened here. 2009 through 2018, the breaches, you could see breaches, most of these, what were being reported were theft and loss. This is what was happening until about 2019. We started seeing cybersecurity attacks, malware attacks, and specifically ransomware. What happened in 2020? Pandemic. Hackers exploited us in 2020. So 2020, record-breaking year of reported incidents, and those were mostly ransomware and cybersecurity related. 2021, 715, another record-breaking year. In 2022, pretty much we've kind of leveled out. In 2022, out of that 707 that were reported, 555 of those, so about 80% of those were ransomware attacks, all right? The history of hacking is, so it's going up. It's more and more, even since 2020, when it was the first really major record-breaking year of ransomware attacks, worse in 21, worse in 22. And I think I have a slide in here coming up that's going to show you that we're on par for maybe another record-breaking year this year for ransomware. Where is what's the location of the data that's being breached? And primarily, they're getting into our network servers, and they're holding our servers hostage, right? Where do the breaches occur? All right, so this is interesting. This is 2022. The majority of what happened in 2022. Health plans like your Anthems, your insurance companies, Medicare, Medicaid, they get hit too. They're considered covered entities. Health providers, that's us, hospitals, doctors' offices, clinics. But the majority of what happened in 2022 happened at our business associate level. So our business associates, by law, are subject to the same HIPAA security standards that we are as covered entities. And I say we because I'm assuming most of you are working for covered entities. Some of you may be in here as business associates, but we all have to abide and follow the same rules. I'm going to tell you something about business associates. So it's happening more so at the business associate level. And when I'm coming in and doing security risk assessments, one of the things I've really been talking a lot about is what's your relationship with your business associates? Do you know what they're doing with your data? Are they protecting it? Business associates, like maybe they do our billing. Maybe they are our third-party IT company. Maybe they are off-site cloud storage. Chances are most of you are partnering with third parties who do these services for you, and that's what constitutes them being our business associates. And the big question that I ask is, are you asking them if they're conducting their own security risk assessment? Now, the HIPAA Security Rule doesn't say you have to, but this kind of information points to the fact that I think you want to. I think you're going to want to know if they are, in fact, doing their own risk assessments, if they are, in fact, safeguarding your information. Do you have associate agreements on file with them? So I have a client last year. They do a great job on their risk assessment. In fact, every time that I go, they make it very hard for me to find anything to even cite on their risk assessment. And I have to say that all of our clients over the years, as we've done the security risk assessments, each of you are making it more and more difficult on Greg and myself as we come in to do the assessments, because you're doing a great job. I mean, I really, really love working with all of our clients, and we treat it like an educational process, and you all have risen to the occasion, and you're doing great. This particular client, the only thing that I could cite on his assessment last year had to do with business associates. So what I put on their assessment was that we need to do a better job of tracking our business associates. We need to be asking the question, are you conducting your own security risk assessments? We need to track that information. And we need to basically have kind of make sure that we have one centralized location for our agreements and the information we collect on them. All right, this client, to no surprise, when I showed up this year to do his risk assessment, this client provided me with this report specifically on the one vulnerability that I listed on his assessment last year. This all has to do with what he's done with his business associate tracking methodology since last year. And so I was blown away. I'm like, you understood the assignment. You pass. But he's got a plan for actually keeping up with I mean, he's got spreadsheets in here and tracking mechanisms that he's developed because it's important. And you know what? When I look at this data, that makes me happy, because a lot of times we think that when we sign that business associate agreement, that that's our protection layer. But when we see information like this, we don't really know what's happening when we allow our data and our information, patient health information, to be saved on a cloud server storage unit somewhere offsite. So you have to demonstrate that you're going to hold them accountable to keep your patient's data safe. All right, so this is just more information from HHS suggesting the sharp increase in breaches at the business associate level just over the past, just like in 2022. And current data also points to the fact that it's still happening. So what's happened in 2023? Just the first 6 months of this year, these are by month, the number of breaches reported. Now, again, these are breaches reported to HHS, Health and Human Services. That's the investigative branch of OCR for the HIPAA Security Rule. So if you have to report a breach, that's who you'll report it to. And these are breaches of over 500. When you're talking about ransomware, you're going to be talking about basically your entire database, because it's hard to prove whether they've encrypted just some of your information or all of your information. July, 56 reported ransomware. Those are 49 of those were ransomware attacks. So we have 395 breaches just in the first 6 months of this year, which leads me to believe that this could be another record-breaking year. Ransomware is not going away, and it just keeps evolving. The largest healthcare breach this year in July was HCA Healthcare out of Nashville. They have over 100 hospitals in this system, in this organization. We're talking about 11 million records, and this was a breach at the business associate level. Now, resolution agreements, which is the report that comes after the fact, that gives us information about what happened in the breach and what the penalties are and what the outcomes are. We won't know that for 4 or 5 years, but already civil class action suits, many of them are being filed against HCA on behalf of the patients. And the attorneys are saying it is a lack of safeguards, a lack of security standards that led to this. But this was an off-site external storage, probably a cloud storage solution that got hacked into. All right, the reports that I've read this year, let me just say, I tell you all of this kind of to build up, like, this is our number one threat, is a cybersecurity attack in our hospitals, in our clinics. This is what could take us out and cause the most damage. Our number one vulnerability is, unfortunately, the human part of that. It's our workforce. And so when I'm reading another cost of a data breach report this year by IBM Security, it's true, and this is what I tell all of my clients. There are certain measures, security measures that need to be prioritized, such as training. We cannot train enough because we're clicking on the links, we're picking up the phone, and we're giving the password over to someone phishing on the phone because we believe they are truly our IT support company. So it's employee training, threat detection, and incident response planning. Those are what is being identified as where we are lacking, especially in the health. This is healthcare specifically. So also, the most effective, what is said in this report, the most effective incident response strategy for reducing the duration of a data breach was to combine the formation of an incident response team and combine that with the testing of the incident response plan. Organizations with both an incident response team and they've conducted plan testing, on average, identified or contained breaches 54 days faster than those organizations who had neither. So just before we get into what all of the security safeguards, in 2022, HIPAA settlements and civil monetary penalties, usually in my presentations, I talk about a specific healthcare organization who's gone through a breach and what the outcome of that is. So this particular breach happened in 2018. And the outcome of that was an $875,000 penalty amount. That's just what they had to pay to OCR. That does not indicate the actual cost to rectify from the cybersecurity attack. It was a cybersecurity attack on a web server. And the resolution agreement, which is what we read to learn, what is it that HHS is looking for when they're conducting these investigations? What is it, once they've conducted the investigation, what is the outcome? What are they saying that we as a covered entity or a business associate, where did we go wrong? What were we not doing? And the outcome of that is this OSU, they were not conducting ongoing risk analysis. So it starts with the security risk analysis. They did not have a security incident response and reporting plan in place. They were not conducting ongoing evaluations. Evaluation is not the security risk assessment itself. It is a way to measure how well our safeguards are working. Audit controls, breach notifications, and the impermissible disclosure. So all of this is what led to this $875,000 settlement. All right, so this is what I do. This is the HIPAA security rule in a nutshell. I incorporate this slide in just about every presentation that I do because this is what is at the heart of what we're doing when we do a security risk assessment. I have red boxes around the parts of the HIPAA security rule that I feel, in general, we could be doing better. And how we would prepare, be more resilient for a ransomware attack in case it does happen to us. And so as Greg and I both have come out and conducted our risk assessments this year, we absolutely talk about all of these safeguards, but we are specifically focusing on the ones that we think are going to better posture you for being resilient against that attack. It starts with the security management process. While I think we understand that we're doing our risk assessments, there's a big difference in conducting your risk assessment every year. And do you actually have a risk management process in place? So when you actually have the report, are you following up after it? Are you taking those vulnerabilities and mitigating them to a low risk? And we still have work to do on some of that. And then information system activity review is a big one. We need to be conducting more of it. So we will ask the questions. Are you reviewing audit logs? What audit logs do you review? Are you looking at, firewall server logs, event logs? And that makes up part of the audit controls as well. The biggest thing that I ask for documentation on comes down to the security incident response and reporting. I would say that almost every assessment that I've conducted over the past year, I will cite either a medium or a high vulnerability on this, because I think that is where the room for most improvement exists. We really don't have written plans in place. You know, when the FBI tells us don't pay the ransom, and it's because they think that we have documented procedures in place for bringing back up a network, and we have backups in place for recovering lost data or encrypted data. While we have those things, what I find is that we don't test it. And we have to test in order to know that in that event that we're faced with an outage, how do we do it? And simply thinking we know how to do it has panned out that it doesn't always go according to plan. And we've had clients who this has happened to, and the learning lessons and the documentation after the fact points to, if testing had been done, the recovery phase would have gone a lot better. And so we focus very, very hard on what's your incident response plan, and then also testing. Do you test the plan? Do you revise the plan? Do you have restoration procedures? And I don't think that's going to change over the next couple of years. Each time we do the risk assessments, these are going to be the key areas of what we focus on. And I want to see documentation. I want to know that you're actually putting the plans to test. I think that when we read about these major issues, whether it's healthcare, and we've seen some big ransomware attacks and outages in healthcare lately, or whether it's an MGM grant, as an advisor, when I see this on the news, I'm thinking, man, I just believe that had they been testing their backups, because everybody has backups, if they had been pulling together a cybersecurity, a security management team within the organization and been testing this and discussing it, they would have been better prepared. And I think that we would see response times much shorter. It wouldn't take so long to bring our systems back up, instead of it taking sometimes 6, 8, 10 months to get back and recover. So that's why we focus on this in our security risk assessment plan. Oh, I want to go back one real quick. So one of the things when we talk about information system activity review and audit controls, that's a big part of, I get told a lot, like we could do better on that. So I'll mark that into the plan, and I'll say, you know, all right, what do we know, what logs we need to be reviewing? This is actually taken out of a template that I'm going to share with you all today for one of the incident response plans. I wanted to highlight this because I do get asked a lot, like, what should we be reviewing? What should be the proactive approach at reviewing activity and discovering, you know, threat detection? And these are the types of logs that CISA recommend that you actually review on a regular and ongoing basis. Now, you will have copies of this slide. This is something that you can share with your IT, your departments, and your CISOs. This will be in the HIPAA app, and also the incident response plan templates that I'll share with you will be in the HIPAA app as well. All right, so when it comes to incident response and reporting, I feel like that's where we really, really, really need to focus our efforts and be ready. It'll help make us more resilient. I look at the CISA, which is Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and the NIST protocols when it comes to helping or assist you with incident response planning. When we have these talks and we talk about incident response plans, the most common question, the number one question is, well, how do I put that plan together? What does it look like? Do you have a template? And so I have found, and I've actually talked to regional representatives that work for CISA here in Kentucky. They have provided some templates for us, and they've also pointed to some others online that I've found. And I want to just kind of explain to you what an incident response plan is kind of takes into consideration. So when it comes to incident handling, NIST has a kind of methodology for what you should follow. And again, this is, I think we kind of know in our minds how we would respond to an incident, but it's not until you're thrown in the middle of a fire that you're really going to know what you need to do. So this is part of planning for that. So you've got your preparation, your detection and analysis, containment, eradication and recovery, and then your post-incident activity. And so every plan should take this into consideration. You should have your plan, and the templates that I'll provide you with break down into these categories the types of activities that need to be done for each of these steps. So preparation. Preparing for it is simply, first of all, having a plan written, right? Having a team assembled. Do you have an incident response team, and who should be on that team? These templates actually kind of give you ideas about who should be on these teams, and having their contact information ready so that when you get a call from somebody and says, I can't get into anything, the systems are down, who needs to be assembled and how do we activate that plan immediately? Detection and analysis. So you've got to know, what is being reported? What are we facing here? Has a threat been detected? I mean, I kind of look at this and I think in the case of the large attacks that we've seen and we've read about, I'm thinking we know that it's been detected and it is taking us down. We're pretty quickly, like in the case of MGM Grand and in the case of some of the healthcare cases we've seen, and we're going to pretty quickly and immediately jump into containment, eradication, and recovery. So, and then once you have been able to recover your systems, one of the most important parts of the process is the post-incident activity so that we learn from it. And so without getting too technical, because I know we're not all IT people, and this stuff is really going to be specific to your incident response team, I would point you to the incident, the templates that we have, and that will kind of guide you through the process. Jared, do you want to bring up one of the templates real quick? So this template is the CISA template that I am encouraging you to share with your IT departments, your compliance officers, your HIPAA security officials. Again, because it is required. It is part of the HIPAA Security Rule, the Security Incident Response. And what we're seeing in these resolution agreements and what we will continue to see, a result of these ransomware attacks and the breaches, one of the reasons they will have a penalty is because there was a lack of planning. They didn't have an incident response plan in place. And not only that, they weren't testing. They weren't testing a plan. They weren't testing restoration procedures. They weren't testing their backups. So this is meant to help you get a plan in place. And then once you start to write the plan, schedule. I think that annual testing is pretty critical. Just like annual security risk assessments. I mean, think about it. If you're in the middle of a ransomware attack, I can kind of associate it as being in the middle of a fire, right? And how are you going to put out a fire if you don't know how to put out a fire? Even your local fire departments conduct training, right? They go out and they burn down little houses and barns, and they bring the whole fire department out there, and they're aiming the water at it, and they're trying to put the fire out, but they train so that when they get the call for the real thing, they know better how to do it. So associate it to that. We got to be able to put the fire out quickly before it burns the whole house down. So Jared, if you'll just kind of scroll through a little bit, go past the table of contents. Now I'm just doing this to give you a visual of what an incident response template looks like, because that's what's asked of us. When we cite on the assessment that you don't have a plan in place, the immediate question is, well, do you have a template that you can provide me? And so we're doing that now. And these are great templates, but there's a lot to digest in this. You cannot just, this isn't something that you can pull together a team and it be written and done in a few days. So I would encourage you to start soon. Give it a year to come up with the entire process. Give yourself time to test it and then document the outcomes of it and learn from it. So I want to show you my favorite part of this particular template. My suggestion is you take these 3 templates that I'm going to provide with you or for you, and you're going to have to customize based on your facility, your organization. Pick out your favorite parts. You'll get the gist. The concept is the same. But one of the things I really like, I think it's almost toward the end, you'll see a bunch of tables, and it almost looks like checklist. And Jared. Yeah, it's a long document. Like I said, it's a lot to process, but see, there's the table that I was saying in the earlier about the logs to monitor. Keep going, just go really fast to the end. Okay, right here. I love this. So incident response checklist. This kind of simplifies. I think you could almost start with the end of the document, and it will help you understand the first 20 pages or so that Jared just zoomed by. But figure out who your team is, get this in their hands, and start testing soon. Because I really do, I tell my clients every time I come on site, my biggest fear for you is a ransomware attack. My biggest fear for you is that you're going to get hit, you're going to be blindsided, and you don't even know if your backups are going to work. You don't, in some cases, a few years ago, I had clients that we weren't even sure where our backups were. Like I said, things have improved drastically over that, but we've got to resiliency is key, and this is one of the tools that will help you become more resilient. If you'll switch back to PowerPoint. All right, so what do we do as far as, future and the state of our security posture? One of the lessons learned, or I guess this is a lot of lessons learned out of reading so many resolution agreements and talking to clients who have gone through ransomware attacks, that's what we want to do. We want to learn from it. What can we do better? Where were our weaknesses? It is recommended that your security controls are top of the game these days, and it's an investment. But I'll tell you, sometimes there's pushback from the top down, from our leadership, because technology is expensive. But when you look at the cost associated with a ransomware attack, I could make the case all day long. I would rather invest on the front end and improve our security controls, become resilient, harden our infrastructure, than to go through what we've seen some of our friends in healthcare, and even like the $100 million in the entertainment, in the MGM case. I would rather invest it up front. It's going to be expensive, and far less expensive than if we are attacked. And it's been proven time and time again. So what are those advanced security controls including? It really comes down to, we need threat detection. We need a plan, an incident plan in place. We need to test the plan. We absolutely have to look at things like multi-factor authentication, encryption, and digital forensics. You're going to have that if you have a security incident. In the case of the MGM grant, they paid a one-time $10 million fee for consulting. As soon as they realized they had been hit, they went out and partnered with the best of the best, and right off the bat got charged $10 million. And part of the services that were rendered was the digital forensics of it. It's a big part of a ransomware attack. You got to know, how did they get in? Where did they go? How do we get them out? So forensic, system patching, we've got to keep our networks patched. So these are, I won't read every single one of them. These are technical controls that are mostly more, I guess, your IT people care the most about, but this is what leads to vulnerabilities when we don't have our security controls in place. Legacy systems is still a big deal in our healthcare patchwork in our technology world. We have to get rid of those servers or upgrade those servers that are no longer within updates. Like Microsoft, we're not able to end of life is what it's called, end of life. So we've got work to do. We absolutely can continue to put these measures in place. And I think year over year, your security posture is going to improve, and it's going to show on your security risk assessments. So I just went backwards. When I want to go backwards, I go the wrong way, and vice versa. All right. So on this last slide, there are links to the templates that I've shared. So the one we just looked at was from CISA. It's probably my favorite one, but there are favorite parts of each of these. The CHIRP is specific to healthcare, so I think that absolutely it's worth looking at the template that they have provided. NIST is heavily technical. So if you have a large IT department, you have people in your IT department who love the technical specifications and can go deep like that, I absolutely recommend that you pass this on to them and let them kind of go through. And this will all be shared on HIPAA, the links as well. Okay, so I think this is the first time I'm way under time. I was bribed downstairs to get done quickly, just so you know, Brent. I said, I don't think I can do it, but I think I did it. So Brent, now well, first of all, does anyone have any questions about security risk assessments or what we do? Do you have any questions about the presentation today? And you can use HIPAA as well to submit any information or any questions that you might have, and I can follow up through HIPAA. No?
We have one question.
We do have one question.
So, and I don't know if you can really answer this whole thing, but what testing would you suggest? There are backups, there are checks to make sure the backups are ran and completed. And if no notifications are sent, I think it's supposed to say, if now notifications are sent to those needing to check backups, but doing complete backup systems restores is not feasible in healthcare. So
right, and
restores aren't feasible. Most just do a test to restore some of the data on a test server or system. Plus, they can report the success of a live restore as live and test restores check.
Right. Well, and you probably have something to say about this too, Brent, because you've actually been a network administrator before, and I haven't. I have seen situations where backups have failed when they've been brought in during a ransomware attack and it didn't quite go as well. I think the bigger issue that I'm seeing is not so much testing, worrying about whether or not the backup is there, the data is there on the backups. It's the restoration procedures in general. So if your network is made up of one server, then restoring that is not quite as difficult. You have one server to bring back up. But most of you, especially if you're working in hospitals, it's far more complicated than just a one server setup. Things have to go in order. So we had one client who went through a ransomware attack, and they had an incident response plan. It was pretty abbreviated, but they did. I gave them credit. They had a plan in place. They executed that plan during this attack, and guess what? They learned so many things when they tried to bring their network back up that they did not account for in the incident response plan. It was going through the fire and going through actually trying to recover that they realized that they didn't consider things like printers on in their incident response plan. It was an afterthought. They didn't think about transcription services. There were several things that came up during the recovery process. So I think that it's more about, you can tabletop these exercises, right? And we have one client who has actually done some tabletop exercises and had some great outcomes from this. Just exercising the thought, like that's why the plan is important. So many clients that I see, the disaster recovery plan, we don't have restoration procedures documented. That's where that's what I think is the problem. We are waiting for something to happen, and then when it does happen, what we think we're going to do and then what we actually do doesn't work. It's like what we thought would work doesn't work. And that's why I'm testing and saying, do you have restoration procedures? Have you ever thought about the fact that if you got the call in the middle of the night and you walked into your hospital and you had absolutely no access, not even to phones, what would you do? Where do you start? That's the point. So if you can get the plan in place, some of our clients do have backup environments. That's ideal, right? Having a backup environment to be able to actually simulate it. But if you don't have a backup environment, I understand that's costly. I mean, I honestly would make the case to have a backup environment, and I would use all the data in the world about what went wrong and the cost of it to support that. But at a minimum, what we would like to see is that we're pulling our strategy team together and we're exercising it as a tabletop. Actually, one of these templates, and it might be the CISA one, it's either CISA or NIST, has a list of scenarios, training scenarios, tabletop exercises. So specific, here's what happened on day one, and you can exercise that out. So everybody needs to be at that table, your compliance officer, your IT people, everybody that's on your response reporting and planning team. And that's better than doing nothing. So what do you think?
Well, I mean, I agree with you. And testing, we can all test backups, and you just don't really always know, can you restore completely from that backup?
Right.
You might be able to restore a file from that backup, but does the entire backup restore? There's virtualization options as well out there. That's one option. I'll give you an example today with Story. He handed me 2 thumb drives with this presentation on there, and he sat there and looked and he said, I have 2 more in my suitcase. So that guy's got 4 backups of his presentation for us today. I mean, so, he's maybe a little overkill, but I think, looking at that is always important. The other thing is documentation. So not just testing, but documenting how you can restore a system. I mean, we try to document all the time, but we tend to forget when we make changes. And so when you're trying to do a restore from a ransomware attack, what was changed in the past 6 months? Was it documented? Was it put somewhere that's retrievable as well? I think that's really important, because a lot of times when we document, we're saving that information on the same machine that might be encrypted during an attack.
Right.
And so making sure you save those off and have those available as well.
Yeah. And I also wanted to mention too, network diagrams, which won't mean anything to you if you're not in the IT world. But one of the things I am going to be asking for and talking more about when I come out this year, next year, is a network diagram. I think that's kind of part of the problem when we're trying to recover, especially in a larger organization. Your networks are made up of so much technology. I think it is a crucial part of every incident response plan. So if those of you who are on the security risk team, be prepared. I'm going to ask for a network diagram because I have yet to even really see a true proper network diagram during an assessment. So these are the types of things that we talk about when we come out and we conduct your security risk assessment. Again, we're thinking more along the terms of what's your biggest threat, and it's a cybersecurity attack. So we're really asking the questions and holding your feet to the fire during the assessment, making sure that the safeguards that can protect you the most are addressed within your organization and that you're prepared. All right, so if there aren't any more questions, I really sped through the presentation so that I could get to the part that I'm most excited about. Well, yeah, that's what we'll blame it on, is the awards. So what are we starting out with, Brent? Yeah. I need to look at that paper too. Are you reading it or am I? This one right here is what I'm reading, right?
Yep.
You want me to read it? All right. Okay, let's get this going. This is the best part. All right. Well, I have to say, I think I have the best clients. I absolutely love coming out and helping with the security risk assessments. And there are great conversations. I've built a bond with all of my clients. As a matter of fact, I have to say, I have clients who we've gone from a process of when we would walk in to do security risk assessments 7-8 years ago, we were hated. Like nobody wanted to see us come. It was a scary process. And I think that when we can say, like, when we walk in now and I honestly have clients who say, this is my favorite time of the year. I'm like, do I need to check your temperature? Because I think you're sick. Like, that's crazy. You're excited that they have enjoyed the process because we make it we make it educational. It shouldn't be scary. It's meant to help you. You know, I always say, I'm not here to assess fines. I'm here to help you keep from that happening. So I'm going to get to brag on a couple of clients today, but I really could brag on all of my clients in so many ways. The first award that I'm going to present, and I've called it the 5-Star HIPAA Excellence Award. 5 stars because there are 5 main pillars to the HIPAA security rule. That is administrative, technical, physical safeguards, but then that's also policies and procedures and notification, breach notification. And so when it comes to meeting all of those and having done a great job, and we've been working with this organization for years, and we've made a lot of improvements over the years. I have to say, I'm so happy to present this award to Ephraim McDowell Regional Medical Center. This is for the hospital side. So I would like for Becky Blevins and Marilyn Peterson, who came all the way from Danville, to come over. Yes. Give them a big hand. So here's Becky, Marilyn. So when I nominated you for this award, this is what I wrote for you guys. Ephraim McDowell consistently demonstrates excellence in upholding, come within my boundaries so that you're on. See, you're going to see how hard it is. It messes with you. You got to stay in the box. All right. They consistently demonstrate excellence in upholding the HIPAA security rule by prioritizing the protection of their patients' health information. With a steadfast dedication to enhancing security compliance, Ephraim McDowell conducts annual security risk assessments. I know that because I've been there doing them for several years. Promptly addresses identified vulnerabilities. So when their report is handed to them, actually before I even leave the premises, if I'm finding things, they are right behind me fixing it and doing it and mitigating. That's mitigation before I ever even leave. But then they keep on after the fact. And then and they reinforce safeguards as needed. The team collaborates seamlessly to address any concerns. You may not always think it's seamless, but you make it look like it. To address any concerns in the IT and compliance teams at Ephraim McDowell. This is compliance, this is IT, and I mean, they are a dynamic duo. In monitoring the organization's existing security measures while actively researching and adopting improved solutions, because you do. You all stay on top of it. The commitment to security is deeply ingrained in Ephraim McDowell's culture, evident throughout its extensive network of facilities encompassing 3 hospitals and over 20 clinics. Isn't that true? How many clinics do you have? 28?
We'll have 30. Yeah.
Stephen, did you get that? It keeps growing. It keeps growing. All right. Well, congratulations to the team at Ephraim McDowell. So I want to shake their hand real quick. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Are we doing a photo? All right. Thank you, ladies. Yeah. I am always happy to work with you guys. Thank you. All right. So that was the hospital. I was able to give 2 awards. So one was the hospital level, and then I had to choose a clinic. And I'll tell you, it was even harder to choose a clinic because I really do have the greatest clients. Like, they are making my job difficult because They absolutely, for the most part, are taking these reports. No longer are they going into a drawer somewhere and waiting for me to come back next year. They really are starting to mitigate, and they take it seriously because they know this ransomware thing is a big deal. And so it means so much to say, when I show up the next year, they're so happy to show me what they've done since I was there last year. But I chose in this case, the 5-star HIPAA Security Excellent Award at the clinic level goes to Health First Community Health Centers of Western Kentucky. So Lindsay Steele is here today. I have been working with Lindsay since I first started at the REC 9 years ago on meaningful use. We started out, right, Lindsay? And then Lindsay actually was put in charge of the security risk assessment process. So we worked together on that. Are we in the box? We worked together on this, 2 thumbs up, on the security risk assessment process. And you know what, Lindsay, like where we started years ago, I mean, you all on your reports, 10 years ago, there was a lot of work to be done, right? And every year when I would come back, Lindsay would have improvements. I remember the year that for two years in a row, we talked about encrypting laptops. And I kept saying, Lindsay, we have got to, and this was before ransomware took off, we have to get those laptops encrypted. And finally, I came back that 3rd time and she's like, Amy, we got those laptops encrypted. She kept making the case. And you know what she used to help make her case was the security risk assessment. And the board of directors at Health First take it very seriously. They look at the security risk assessment and they say, all right, well then you really do have a very supportive board, don't you? Yeah. All right. So let me read what I wrote about Lindsay. And I'm going to tell you this, Lindsay's partner, Jason, is Jason the CIO or the IT director? Okay, so that's his proper title. So CIO, Jason is the one who, the business associate. This is the client who I could only find one vulnerability to put on their report last year, and it was the business associate tracking. So Jason, every time I find a vulnerability, Jason sees it as a challenge, a major challenge. He is going to show me when I come back the next year, and he shows me every time, and he has the documentation to prove it. So that was his little business associate presentation that he gave me. I'm like, I just said you need to do a better job. And he's like, not only am I doing a better job, but I'm going to market the empire on business associate tracking. So, all right. Health First consistently demonstrates an exceptional commitment to safeguarding their patients' electronic PHI, surpassing industry standards, because the truth is the HIPAA security rule gives us the standard, and there's many ways that we can meet those standards. But Jason and Lindsay say, we're not going to do it at the standard level. We're going to take it a notch above. And that's building a resilient network. That is absolutely what I want to see at every client, and for them to be able to do that. During annual security risk assessments, the team at Health First consistently challenges themselves with the question, how can we enhance our practices further? And furthermore, they actively involve their workforce and leadership team in continuous security training initiatives, including engaging in a CISA-led tabletop exercise. I talked about that last year at our conference. They brought CISA representation in, and they did a mock ransomware attack at the tabletop level. We had everyone in the room, the CEO, the COO, our IT team, our chief nursing officers. It was incredible. And that's kind of what gave me the vision of like, I'd love to see that done at all of our clients. So focused on cybersecurity attacks, that was the tabletop. It is remarkable to hear clients express anticipation for the security risk assessment every year. And Health First team consistently shares their excitement, eagerly showcasing the improvements they have made year after year. Jason was the first person, I don't know if you ever said this to me or not, but Jason was the first person to say to me, I could not wait for you to come today. That's the craziest thing I've ever, did anybody ever say that to you when you were, no, I understand. No, they didn't, but they can't wait for me to come. So it's because I'm nice. Brent was scary. It was scary, but anyway, their genuine enthusiasm for learning about HIPAA security is commendable, really, and it sets them apart in their dedication to staying ahead of evolving security measures. So, with that, Lindsay, I want to say congratulations to you and Jason. It is an absolute pleasure to work with you guys. You make my job difficult, which is exactly what it needs to be, and I look forward to seeing you guys every year as well. So, let me get a picture with Lindsay. All right. Thanks for coming all the way. I appreciate you guys. And with that, I guess I'm the last one.
All right. Amy, you used all your time. I knew you would.
Yeah, if I could just start talking, just leave it.
Yes. So as we wrap up today, I want to say thank you to our presenters. We appreciate you all coming and sharing all your thoughts, ideas, research, and strategies on improving care in Kentucky. Thank you for thank you to our exhibitors. Also, again, my staff, my team, for helping put on this this conference. I know that it's not easy. Thank you for all the attendees, virtual and in person. We appreciate you all coming out and continue to improve the health in Kentucky. As you can see from the data Mike showed, we got a lot of work. So let's keep pushing at it. Thank you all, everyone. Oh, yes, thank you. And one other thing, feedback on the HUVA app. We have some feedback, so we would appreciate to hear from you. Talk about, all the presenters. If there's other things you would like to hear next year at our conference, please, we take all that into account every single year. Thank you all. Perfect.